Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Rafaela. I'm the editorial coordinator at Architecture Hunter, and it's wonderful to have you all here for another session of our monthly webinar series where we bring together architects from different contexts to share their work, perspectives, and processes. As many of you may know, each month at Architecture Hunter, we explore a different theme that guides our conversations and content. This month, we're diving into fields of culture, sports, space, and identity. And I think it's a theme that feels especially alive right now with the World Cup happening. Because behind every stadium, every arena, every pitch, there are architects making decisions that shape how millions of people experience something together. Whether you're designing for elite performance or for the fan in the stands, sports architecture is all about community, ritual, and identity. And today we have two very special guests whose work speaks to exactly that from very different angles. We're really happy to have both of them here. Before we begin, just a quick reminder, please send your questions through the Q&A tab throughout the presentations. After each talk, I'll be moderating a live Q&A session with each of our speakers. Our first guest today is Rodrigo Vilas Boas, partner at OODA Architecture based in Porto. Rodrigo received his master in architecture from the Faculdade de Arquitetura da Universidade Luzia da Porto in 2005, completing with an academic internship at Álvaro Leite Cisa Vieira. Before founding OODA, he worked at OMA in Rotterdam and previously at M. Ventura and Associados Arquitectos in Porto. He has been frequently invited to lecture in Portugal and abroad, and last year we gladly welcomed him at the Hunter International Forum, which is Architecture Hunter's own forum that happened in São Paulo in August. So Rodrigo was one of our speakers. And so please join me in welcoming Rodrigo.
Hello. Hello, everyone. Hello, Rafaela.
Hello.
It's a great pleasure to be here talking with you again. I mean, it's always great to have contact with such a great team as Architectural Hunter. And hello, everybody that is listening. I hope some people will have the patience to listen to our conversation. Maybe I should start by showing my screen. I prepared a short presentation. A second. I hope everyone is able to look at it.
Yes, we can see the screen.
Yes? Okay. Well, we will start by talking about the thematics. I mean, OODA is a practice based in Porto, in Portugal. We work also abroad. We became international architectural practice a few years ago. Well, in the fields of culture, it's a very broad thematic, but I focus this thematic into the sports and how sports can somehow create context, embrace the culture, and also somehow educate the people around these buildings. And I brought 3 projects in a very different scales and very different approaches, and also different stages of development. Regarding this thematic. So who we are, it's basically, we are a team of around 60 architects. We have offices in Porto, in Matosinhos, more properly in the headquarters. We also have a practice in Lisbon, where we have about 15 people there. I mean, Lisbon is the Portuguese capital. So we had the need of having some presence there, and we have also some relevant projects there, like for instance, Carlos Gulbenkian Museum, which we just finished, and it's a very interesting museum and a cultural museum that also somehow embraces the people around it and influence somehow how the city works. The first project I will talk about is the Liga Headquarters. This is a competition we were invited to in 2019. This is, I mean, Liga is somehow related to football in Portugal, is who manages all the clubs, all the Portuguese clubs in Portugal. So, and they make the events, they make the championship. So it's almost like a Portuguese federation of football. And they were installed in another building in Porto City. So just to give you a short impression, I mean, the historical part of Porto is within these boundaries. I'm not sure if you can see my mouse. I hope so. And then there are other rings around Porto, and the location is exactly in this access point. And it's, as you can see, it's kind of a undeveloped area. It has some residential area around it, quite scattered. It was also placed as almost a dormitory part of Porto. It's next to industrial area, which is this big spot. And everything that is from this level towards the river and towards the sea is the most developed area. This Porto city center, to give an idea, is in here. So there was a need of relocating this building, and so the municipality kind of landed a plot to this institution for them to develop a new building for them for accommodation. The previous building was pretty much offices without any relation with the city. It was a very encapsulated building without any kind of permeability. And so this is a plot here on red. And this plot is, as I said, landed by municipality for this public institution to develop their project there. It had very interesting particularities. So there was a very monofunctional area on the surroundings. This is a highway, the ring in Porto, which has also some kind of scar among the city. So there is a disconnections between this residential area and the rest of the city. So this place was almost forgotten. So it was also a strategy from the municipality to bring this new building that could somehow create an impact on this area and help to develop it as an anchor building on this area. It has a particularity of having this water line on its boundaries, which is Ribeira da Granja, which is one of the biggest arms of Porto Douro, and it crosses pretty much all the cities. A very important riparian line. And it created somehow a small park on the other side of the street that is supposed to happen here. So we thought it could be very interesting to kind of make this building a very porous building that, of course, is an institutional building, but somehow could invite people to live in it and can somehow be blended with the natural landscape on its surrounding. The brief was Liga Portugal. So the big brief there's a particularity. The president at the time of, and I think it still is there, of Liga Portugal was a former referee from football. It was a very imponent and important character among all the institution. Had very strict visions on how he wanted this building to operate, and how this place could somehow be used as a marketing arm of the institution. So there was also this ambition of having an iconic approach on the building, and somehow can we create a landmark, not only by building and the form of the building in itself, but also how it could behave with the city. So there was also this parameter of the urban landscape, which is really the neighbor of this building. And there was also the need of bringing people to the building, to live in the building, to understand the building, but also to create some public environment around the building. So these were the brief. And we thought that we wanted to bring simplicity to this complexity of parameters. So we thought, okay, so what is football all about? So we start digging. I mean, I'm showing just a very short presentation of how this building was thought and created. But this sentence of a old football player was always on our mind, which is what is needed in football. What a great day for football! All we need is some green grass, and a ball to play. This was kind of the synthesis of football in itself, which was also what this building would celebrate. So we wanted to bring everything that the building needs and the city needs into very small and short sentence like this one. And you will see this image, and you will, of course, understand very easily what we created afterwards. So this was the vacant lot. These are some diagrams that are important to explain the whole thing of the building. So this is the vacant lot. This is the riparian corridor where the landscape is, and the Ribeira da Granja was sitting. And this was also a very important parameter of the city to be recovered and to be given to the citizens. And our idea, of course, was let's try to blend this and bring these natural advantages of urbanscape into the building in itself, and with this we can create accesses and invite people and nature to the building into this program. So this is repairing the area. This is the park that was recovered, and this is already our proposal. Right now you don't understand it very well, but the idea was basically to create a very synthetic cube, which is a very rational idea of how to create an environment for offices and for this kind of very rational way of living in buildings. And then all the rest of the program, we wanted to somehow shelter it underneath a grass carpet, literally like the football. And then what we thought, this is also an important diagram where we see the confluence between the proposal and the building and the plaza that was created to receive the people, and the park that is being recovered and rethought, which all the advantages that it has. So first of all, we have the water and the refreshment of the cities. We also have the trees. We need the shading, the collection. I mean, there's also noise reduction and all this kind of biodiversity that is among the park, Ribeira da Granja Park, was somehow brought or magnetically pushed into the building. While the program was basically Liga Portugal Headquarters, which was basically buildings, offices and labs for investigation. A museum, a small museum where you have all the history of Liga Portugal, which is quite a prominent and existing. Well, it has some age among the history of football in Portugal, and then the football building, which had performance center, football fields, stores, and places to be rented and to be used by other people than just this very executive building as the headquarters are. And of course, there is some restaurants underneath it will somehow invite people to connect the city with a more institutional building. This is a section of the building. So this is a diagram of a green green carpet that will cover the auditorium, the museum, the football high tech, which is a football field that is underneath covered. Of course, the parking area and the restaurant that is this place, restaurant and this food and beverage areas that are somehow the hinge between the more private program, which is the office area and the investigation area, and the more public area on the ground, which is connected, of course, with this public space on the other side of the street. Here it's very clear. So we have the very cubical building, which the facade was also a great investigation among us to understand how can we make it related with the context and with the lexico of football, and somehow bring the accurate shading needed for the office spaces, and somehow also translate this transparency between inside and outside. So always this very thin and sensitive line between transparency and occlusion and shadowing, which was a very interesting work that we've done, and somehow connected also with the lexico of football. Let me take out this. Well, this is an image of the plaza, which was the reception area where events can happen. I mean, it's a multifunctional space, which is an extension of the city. So the idea is that the building can somehow embrace other uses. This is the same plaza where you can see the connection with the green corridor. So it's a plaza that it's somehow an auditorium as well for some uses. It also is the roof of other programmatic overviews that we have underneath the green carpet, and it somehow celebrates the entrance for the building. The lobby, there is the store, which is also a part of on the surroundings of the plaza. So all the plaza is activated by the auditorium, which you can understand that there be people surrounding or in the entrance of auditorium, people going to the store, and people going also for the football high tech, which is a lot of devices related to football, not only a football field in itself, for around, I think it's, you can play 6 against 6, but it also has the spectator area. It has some bars. It has some performance areas where you can play. You can measure your performance by going to this place. And in fact, this space became a very interesting point in Portugal because there's a lot of kids and parties of young kids. I mean, football in Portugal is kind of a huge fever nowadays. And there's a lot of people, mostly young kids, that are absolutely affectionated by the mediatic exposure of football. So this building is being very, very much used on this sense for the public interactions, for party for kids, etc. So there's a lot of other people that were around and not even noticed the former building of Liga Portugal, and somehow they know it very well, not only by its architecture, but being open to the city, but because its programmatic overview is very connected with the needs of the people and the community. This is the facade test. I mean, we wanted to relate it with the thematic of the football. So the hexagonal facade was somehow immediate connection. So for us to understand how can we cover the building and how can we relate it and how satisfaction it could have. And this is the overall look of the building. I mean, of course, we had a lot of effort to understand exactly the scale and proportion of the facade, and also to understand how can we build semi-hidden program without actually breaking this horizontality that we wanted to prevail within the project. Well, the auditorium has a different expression. It's an auditorium where the acoustics are absolutely mandatory. It has a lot of existing conferences and other uses that are not even absolutely related with football that happen in this auditorium. So this becomes almost a building that has its own program. It's a very close program, but it's also a very mixed use in a way that it has uses that are not related with football and somehow invite people to live football in a different manner. And the offices as well. I mean, the offices are mostly occupied by related football, like football institutions, trainers, investigation of under the football sports, but there's also other offices with other uses that are also being rented to other companies, and synergies happen there. The building was finished last year. It's now being operated and quite well. So it took almost 5 years to be built since from the moment that we won the competition until 2024. I think by 2025 it was finished the construction, and it's being used now, and the operation is quite successful. All the vegetation is absolutely natural, of course, and most of it is autochthonous, of course, not a green grass, which is a conceptual approach. And the facade was built in fiberglass. It's also quite light. It also has the perfect shading for the office spaces, and its scale also promotes a lot of transparency from the as you can see here, from the interior of the offices to the outside. And this is a football field that is interior. As I told, there's a lot of performance center. In this area, there's a lot of devices to measure your skills as a football player or as an an amateur football player. Actually, we played here a cup, an Archie Cup, last month, but it was not the greatest result we had. But we are planning to improve to show that we are not only the designers of this building, but we could also have some skills on the grass. But unfortunately, we are not there yet. Maybe next time. This is the entrance for the institutional space and for the office spaces. Well, of course, some patios and some sunlight that we in the auditorium. Well, the second project I would like to speak a bit is the different approach. I think this is about performance more than about the connection with the cities. This was a project in Riyadh. It is the house of Nassr. Well, the Al Nassr Football Club, which is the project, the club that where Cristiano Ronaldo is playing in Riyadh in Saudi Arabia. Well, they had a huge problem. They are all mostly international players, and they had to drive about 1 hour to train abroad Riyadh, and so they had the need of improving their installations next to the stadium and next to the main city where everyone and all the players live in. So they invited us to think about the training center and how can it be very optimal and act as a very high level performance center. The project is in Riyadh, in Saudi Arabia. The site is very close to the city center. And the idea, the overall idea of its programmatic overview would be to have, of course, need two 11-to-11 football pitches, one for the main team and another football pitch for the under 21 team. They needed to refurbish a stand that is existent one. There is, of course, the need of having car parks because in Saudi Arabia the transportation is all but public. It's mostly driving cars. And the most important one is to have a high performance training center so that they can improve not only the quality of life of the football players, but mostly improve their wins on the Saudi league. And there was, of course, another need. It's still not done, but we already projected. It's the hotel. This is a project I talked about Liga Portugal, which was a project that we won in 2029, and it was built in 2025. So we have a time lapse of about 6 years since the first concept design until the construction is over. This was a super special project where the project started in 2025 and it was built in the end of 2025. So within 1 year, this building with about 5,000 square meters was designed and built. So it was an amazing experience, connected with all the stakeholders, really well connected, so that this could be possible. Well, this is not, the most iconic building in the world. The idea was to make it actually not iconic at all. And the idea was to make it as a background or a box of performance. So this building would have a facade facing both football fields, as you can see here. And the idea is that its facades could actually work as a background of these high performance centers and not actually disrupting it. So, and the idea was to box in a very strict composition of functions that could act actually from one field to the other, entrances, etc. Very functional building with a facade that would act as a background. It's actually, I think the beauty of it is also because its scale, but its scale was given not by design form. It was actually given by the dimensions of a football field. So that's basically it. About the Lexico and how can we connect this building to the context and to Riyadh and to Saudi Arabia. I mean, the idea, of course, we got some references and some conceptual approaches that we can see. I mean, there's also a very interesting code of design that was developed by RCR some years ago, which is still used for every building that is being thought in Riyadh. And the Lexico is very fine-tuned with the vernacular approach. There's a code of colors, and we followed it strictly. Within the design development, of course, this code gives you a lot of freedom to design a lot of expressions, and these are some key images of some of the paths that we were following. And we selected one that was feasible among all the constrictions, construction constriction, shadowing constriction, and possibility to be built within a very short period of time. Well, some tests and some sketches of how can this Lexico become a reality. Well, this is the implementation area. So the idea was that the football fields are the green ones. The biggest are for the most experienced players. This is a training center, which has double connection between the youngest field and the most in the main team. The 5 is the stand that was existing there and that we recovered, and we brought some new uses like laundries and other uses that they didn't have before. And then we have a projection of what could be an hotel for invited teams and for other players, scouts, etc., which is not under construction yet, but it's supposed to be done in 2027. And then the car parks. These are some sketches of the duality between the training center, which is the one that was built already, and the hotel. Well, this is an image that somehow resumes the whole project. And the idea is that the building in itself should be very discrete. As you can see, I mean, if you perhaps follow Al Nassr, you will see the building and its skin and this parametric skin that we design present in pretty much all the pictures. And we actually noticed because we designed it, but most of the people just feel that that's a very discrete background on the mediatic exposure of. I think this is probably the most important part of the designs of this training center, because we have to accommodate not only the programmer on itself, so the media area, the administrative area, the gym. Well, this is the area. This is the medical and technical area, and then here we have the locker room, and this is the most social area on this side. But this is something that we can accommodate easily. The difficulty part was to make sure that the connection and the circulation among all the people that are inside this building, they don't cross in certain points. So, for instance, we had to be careful because the scouts could not cross the trainer path, the player's path. The social media should also not cross the player's path. So there is a lot of secrets of people among the building that have to be carefully designed to avoid crossings between people. And this was actually a very interesting path, and it's also the most successful one of the building. I mean, I was a few months ago. I was visiting the building in the end of its construction, and we were talking with the sporting director of Al Nassr, and said it was giving compliments for the building, mostly because of its circulation. Because there was one scout that was coming to negotiate one player, and the player should not cross him or be with him before they met the 3 together, and this was only feasible by this design of circuits of people within the building. The facade was also a particular piece of this design, because it was also it's not really part of the performance in itself. We had to convince the institution, Al Nassr, that the design should be as good as they project themselves to be. So the idea of having a building with a high-end facade design should be their ambition, because the ambition of their growth as a national team and probably international team should be projected also by architecture in itself. So we kind of convinced them that they should be also careful on how the design is thought. So the facade was quite simple, also quite easy to build and assemble. It was a clipping system, a prefabricated facade system with panels that had to be, of course, adjusted within the facade. But this gave a totally different face for the building than it was supposed to. The assembly of the facade, and the particularity of it is that all this design in this metric system was very strict and prefabbed and pre-thought in a way that helped the construction team to do the building in about 6 months. And it's a very large building, in my opinion. Then the last project is the last project is in Korçë, Albania. We have been working in Albania for about 4 years. This was a vision that was asked for us in Korçë. Korçë is in the interior part of Albania, very close to the from the frontier of Greece. I think here we can explain. So Tirana and Albania is next to Italy. I mean, there's been a lot of controversial. I think probably you are all aware of the political constraints and the protests that are going there. I mean, there's of course a very ambitious vision of government for this country, and I believe that when you have such a large vision, of course, a controversy and the politics come and claim certain aspects of it or certain decisions that were done. We usually work more in Tirana, which is the capital of Albania, and then there are three cities that are the most important ones, or the most populous ones in Albania, which is Durrës, Vlorë, and Korçë. They make a triangle, and the idea of the government was that we should make a triangle, a sports triangle among all these three cities to attract people to live and know the whole country, not only the capitals or the coastline. So how to attract people for Korçë, and the idea was that the attraction could be led by this triangulation of sports activities, and this was the idea. And how can we bring an idea of a stadium or stadiums or sports complex to be part of a development of a country? It's a very difficult question. And we thought, well, let's first think about how can these infrastructures could actually happen. And this was a map that was actually unveiled by the government of Albania, which showed a strategy of infrastructures that are already built and can be built and be improved. And all these little circles are sports elements or sports buildings or sports activities that are being thought by the government to be part of this whole infrastructure of a country. And we thought that this could be really a transformative point for a country to be kind of based on a sports infrastructure that could lead people and help people to travel among these spots. So our proposal was very naive. I mean, it was very starting point, but I didn't want to stop showing you this also because it's almost a first starting point from the projects that I showed before and I showcased before, because this is basically how we operate in the beginning of the whole concepts. The idea was to have a stadium that would bring integrations with the surroundings, so kind of embrace the context. It should also be innovative. It should be totally transformative. It should act as a landmark. It should be embraced with the landscape and respect it. We also believe that it could be a stadium that is not only a stadium, should be more than a stadium, should be a mixed-use space, and it should improve the connectivity. So by that I mean it shouldn't be one block that somehow blocks the porosity of the place. We were studying also how the vernacular idea of collecting people around an arena act, and there was of course the Greek stadium arena that is very connected with the nature and the landscape, and the Roman circus that acted as itself in a more strong position. And then we were investigating how the generations of stadiums were being designed. So the first generation was basically a football association. It was, for instance, International Olympic Committee, where the stadium was designed for people to live in it and to go there to see the game by themselves. There was a second generation where the television transformed absolutely the idea of design of a stadium. Then the third generation where other functions beyond the stadium were kind of connected, like coffee shops, restaurants, hotels, shops, etc. So there was this kind of economical activities kind of surrounding and gravitating around the stadium, which is we believed or we classified as third generation. And then the fourth generation is a stadium that is not only a stadium for football or for these activities, it has more activities. So you can have somehow moving sitting tiers. There is a below pitch car park, so it accommodates concerts, football matches, and other events. Then the fifth generation is a stadium this stadium is actually a reproduction of a stadium in Tirana, which is not only a stadium, it's also an hotel, and it's a catalyst for a planned and strategic growth of cities. So it has also coffee shops, hotels, restaurants, and they are very well connected with the facade of the city. And actually, there is some porosity, so you can actually cross this and enter the stadium to leave the city when the games are not happening. So the question is, what could be the next generation of stadiums? So we thought the next generation of stadiums, especially in Korçë, should be the ones that are absolutely merged with the landscape of the city or the environment that we felt, because usually the stadiums are, in our opinion, a very blocking point of the in a very impositive structure where they are implanted. And we thought it should be something different from the future of Korçë. So this is the region of Korçë, the city of Korçë, and the stadium is located in this place, which is actually a complex of buildings or complex of sports infrastructures. And there is actually a green corridor that connects a lot of parks among Korçë, and then it connects to the mountain. And this gave us already the hints for our proposal. We wanted this to transform this place into a green park for the city, where the stadiums live along, and also can give some hints for what can be in the future. So we have Korçë landscape, we have Korçë landmarks, and we have the structures of nature as inspirations for what we want to do. These are Zepedrkov is an artist, a Portuguese artist that was working with us at the time and gave us some influence of how could we design it. Also the cutouts of Jessica Bachhaus. And our concept model was very tuned into peeling the ground to design these stadiums and these sport event structures, and so that the landscape can somehow be also part of it or underneath it. So the site location is this site. Then we have the surrounding facilities, the existing urban system, the site location, and between nature and agriculture, between historical and vernacular. So this was kind of the context. We have the historical built area, and we have the natural landscape, which will lead us to the mountain, and could be actually an extension of this first phase of the intervention. We have the entrance point, so we have some density around the stadium that could somehow be potentiated and gain more life and have more synergies to this concept. And then we have the topographic and light approach. So we knew that the light was coming in this direction. We know that topographic was growing towards the mountains, and this is basically the concept to lift the shapes and to lift parks and the indoor facilities underneath the stadiums could somehow be part of the landscape. And this intention could be somehow spread around the city and around this more outskirts of the city. This is the model that we designed. Well, and I think I'm open for questions now. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Rodrigo. Really great to see what OODA has been exploring and developing around the world. And we'll now jump into the Q&A session. So just a reminder to everyone that you can send your questions through the Q&A tab here. And we already have a first question, which is, OODA has been working across very different geographies like Albania, Saudi Arabia, just as you presented now, and others. How do you approach such different cultural and political contexts, and what does each one demand from you as an architect?
Well, what we like to say internally is that we first have to embrace the context, the culture, understand the politics. So first we need to study. As I think it's very simple actually. We have to embrace what is happening there, because usually our thoughts or the project is already in the place, as we like to say. We just have to study what the context is giving us and which hints is giving us to be able to design something there that makes sense for the people that are living there, that somehow will improve their lives, and also play the role of the political strategy, because that's a bit beyond. Of course, we can provoke, criticize, but the political idea of a city is usually a city or whatever, a country, somehow is the motor that drives us to be enthusiastic to act there. Not sure if I answered the question.
I think so. Yes. I have another question. I think it's kind of relates to this last one, which is about specifically the Korçë Stadium, which you talked about creating a connection between the stadium and the local identity. What were the key elements that helped translate something as intangible as a city spirit into an architectural decision?
Well, yeah, I think there is, I mean, before we arrived to cities, there was landscape there, and there is the natural scape there. So whenever, like Korçë, for instance, its vernacularity doesn't give you a lot of cues, but it gives you the impression that you are surrounded with mountains. So the idea is to celebrate the potential of its place. In Korçë, for instance, when we visit the site, we understood that the landscape that is apparent and the one that is hidden has so much potential that we should celebrate it. So I think it's about celebrating the culture of the place. And I think that happens in pretty much all the designs that we do. They always have to be connected with the narrative. They are context driven, and usually they can also be context creators, which would be the case in Korçë, is to create a new context, which is not which the relation is not alignments or very short identities with the existing city, but it's more towards the celebration of a natural scape.
I have another question here. Sports venues are often commissioned by institutions with very specific performance and commercial requirements. How do you hold on to the architectural ambition within those constraints?
We have to combine them. I mean, I think we are service providers, most of all. We are not artists that act by themselves. So we need ingredients to be able to produce architecture. And the constraints are the mindset of these institutions or these clients. They should be respected in the first place, challenged if we think they should be challenged. And it's our argument that prevails. And sometimes we just run out of the project because the mindset is so different that we are not aligned. But mostly we find by conversation and dialogue ways of cooperating and collaborating towards the same goal.
Okay. Another one here. When the political context is changing, what helps you keep a project grounded and moving forward?
Well, very good question. Well, when the political drive changes, I think we are a bit hostage by these big decisions. Of course, what we try to do is always to be close to the main stakeholders and convince them that this is beyond political matters. And if so, our project and our idea is beyond politics. But I believe that most of the times the politics, they don't care about the architectural arguments. It's just, is this within our vision or scope and direction, or it's not and it's out? I mean, I think it's always about ourselves trying to talk with people, with the right stakeholders, to make them understand how important is this project for the people that are living in these places. But it's a very hard way of doing.
I can imagine.
of succeed. It's a very hard to succeed, in my opinion.
And what is the biggest difference in designing for the context of sports or for something particular than designing like a normal building, like a building or a normal structure?
Well, what's a normal structure? I think all the structures have their own programmatic complexities. Of course, they become more simple when you are more used to work with them. So I think the challenge is about your experience. And when you're experienced on designing sports facilities, of course, you are more fine-tuned to their challenges. And of course, when you jump for the first time, it's more challenging because you are used to design museums or residential units, etc. But I mean, we have, I think complexity is about the client and not the programming itself.
Yes. Great. And I will have to wrap up soon because we have to welcome our next speaker. So I'll go into the last question, which is OODA's work often operates at the scale of the city, not just the building. When you approach a sports venue, how do you think about its relationship to the urban fabric around it, but not just during the game day, but on all other days of the year?
Yeah. Well, yeah, you're right. I mean, we usually like to work always on an urban scale for as small as our project is. I mean, we like to look to macro and micro scale because we know about the importance of a building in a city because it prevails through time and it shouldn't be obsolete or should be guessing what is the development in the future of a city. So yes, we do that a lot of time. And well, when we design a building like a sports structure, we always feel that we have a bigger opportunity of making this building as public as possible, because there's a lot of synergies that are colliding there that can be potentiated. So yeah, I mean, I think we have more opportunities to. Well, I really like to design sports buildings because they give you this opportunity, and you can actually convince the clients that are usually very obsessed with the commercial aspects that by embracing the community around it and the public activities there, they will also, it's going to be a win-win situation, which is the different matter when you perhaps design a residential building where you feel as an architect or as a designer that it should be the same approach, but you cannot convince the client because there is a paradigm of winning by having people on private areas. So I think it's more difficult. But I mean, in sports activities, you have a lot of, well, you just have to be creative because there's a lot of opportunities to become the building as public as possible.
Yes. Well, so we have to wrap up now to welcome our next speaker. But thank you so much, Rodrigo. That was a really
thank you
conversation, and we're glad to have you with us today.
Yeah, I feel very honored to be here today. So thank you so much for the invitation.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So now I'm very happy to introduce our second speaker, Alex Thomas. He's the Regional Design Director for Sports and Entertainment and a principal at HKS based in London. Alex leads HKS's London Sports Studio and contributes to the direction of the firm's global sports and entertainment portfolio, which is one of the most significant in the world. Since 2012, he has been a key figure in expanding HKS's work beyond the United States, leading projects across Europe, the Middle East, Asia, and Australia. His portfolio includes the Royal Arena in Copenhagen, Optus Stadium in Perth, and Cosm venues in Los Angeles and Dallas. He's currently leading the arena at Diriyah in Riyadh, and a project that's been closely watched as a next-generation sports and entertainment venue. So please join me in welcoming Alex.
Hi, Rafaela. Thank you very much for the introduction. Hi, everyone online. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for the invitation, and I hope I can provide an entertaining next half hour for you all.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to share my screen. And bear with me. Okay, you don't need to see that picture of me, so let's move on. Okay, so today, everybody, I'm going to talk you through really the thought process that we have as a studio here at HKS in our sports sector. This isn't going to be a presentation of projects or portfolio, or although I will be illustrating using photographs and images of our projects. But what I would like to try and do is just to lift the lid a little bit on how we think in the studio, how we approach sports and entertainment projects, how we approach stadiums, arenas, mixed use districts, and city building. And I'm going to try and take you through the scales, starting as we always start for every single project, with the question of people. And in the context of sports and entertainment, what do people do there? People gather. So why do we do this? And for us, this is fascinating. I really think that the core motivating factor behind sports venues and the human instinct and the things that drive us to leave the house, come out with our friends, with our families, come to do business, come out with the tribe of the team that we support or whatever it is. Some of these things, I think, go back really into the core of what makes us human. I think some of these things are tribalistic. They're hardwired into us. And so that and everything that goes with it about being human is really what's at the core of the conversation around sports and entertainment projects. They serve a function that we have inherently within us to come together, to gather. We're creatures of ritual and habit. We somehow seek out and seek the reward of human connection. And in many ways, these buildings are taking over the roles of other building types that historically have served those functions. You know, it's amazing for us working on stadiums, going through, the lockdowns during the COVID pandemic, and people were asking, well, maybe that's the end of stadiums. Maybe people are going to meet virtually online. Well, the moment we were allowed to, everybody came back out and they came into the stadiums, and that was fascinating for us. And we have to ask why. I think, and this is a cool picture to illustrate the point, but there's a huge body of research out there about these human instincts. And there's this term collective effervescence, and really it's a kind of proven theory around the feelings we have and the emotions we have and the endorphin rush that we get when we find ourselves in a place with lots of other people, and our behaviors start to synchronize, and we start to get that feeling of the hands, the hairs standing up on the backs of our necks. So this is kind of how we start. And we know that the best sports facilities really amplify these kind of instinctive things that we want to do. We want to gather, we want to feel a sense of belonging, we want to celebrate, and we want to remember. And I think as I flick through these images and you're seeing pictures of projects done all around the world, you know, the sport varies, the context varies, the event varies, but the one thing which binds all of these projects together are these human traits and this human instinct to gather and these ritual things. So, you know, what's fascinating for us as we work around the world and we work in different contexts, we look at different sports, is that we understand that there are certain things we can understand as designers that we should be very sensitive to, and we should be extracting and understanding and building into the designs of our projects. So what is the role of architecture in all of this? In our view, architecture is there to give physical form to this kind of collective gathering, give it identity, and to support all of those human interactions and all of these things that need to happen in the project. And again, as we flick through, it's super important to us in our design studio that we create what we describe as one-of-one architecture. So that means architecture which is intrinsically would only make sense in that particular environment, for that particular climate, for that group of fans or spectators, architecture which responds to its urban or landscape, as well as cultural contexts. And so, of course, as we start our process, research becomes such a fundamental kind of ingredient into informing ourselves as designers, collaborating with the client and the many, many different specialists who get involved to really form a very, very strong and clear identity for who the people are who are coming here, what the site and the climate demands, what the business case demands. And when you put all of those things together, in our view, every single project should, rationally speaking, be completely unique and completely fine-tuned and uniquely expressive of that one single place, that one culture, the team, the brand, or what and all of these things that go into the projects. And so you'll see these images. They're showing you moments that exist around, the main event. Yes, we need to get the main event right. We need to have the seating bowl sight lines correct. We need to make sure that everybody can get in safely, everybody can sit comfortably, and everybody can then leave afterwards safely. But really, that is only the very core and the very kind of most simple elements of being a sports architect. For us, everything that sits around it, all of the other opportunities and the other moments that can be created around that are really where there's so much richness and opportunity to explore in these project types. And so here we are in Minneapolis. Previous project was in Los Angeles. And again, we have here a completely unique architectural identity. A lot of people look at these and say, hey, that doesn't look like a stadium. Well, tell me what a stadium should look like. We don't believe it should look like anything. The building should look like the building that it needs to be once you take into account this really intensive process of research and contextualization that needs to go into the projects. So again, these moments, and it's fun to also to look at the people in these images and to consider what they're doing. Why are they there, and what is it about this place and the settings that we're creating that are fostering and kind of satisfying their kind of human urges, connection, this sense of togetherness, or maybe like these people stood by the side of the pitch, a chance to engage with their heroes and the sports people who they've all come out to see. And so when we start to think about people and we start to think about the types of experiences they want, we find ourselves oftentimes ripping up the rule books. And while we know it's important to meet the technical criteria for the various governing bodies for the sports, and that's very important, we like to become as creative as possible and to challenge those things and to ask ourselves, okay, great, we've got the basics, now what else can we do? And that's how you end up with environments like this one, which I think is fantastic. The players can high five, shake the hands of their fans. Think about what those people are doing, those guys who are stood at the front there, the kids who have come along to experience that. These are the things that are really at the core of these projects. So, as I said, we're going to move gradually out in scale. And so here's my next question. So these places that we're creating around these experiences, how do these all shape up together? And essentially, now that we understand that this is about far more than just the main bowl or the arena or the theater that's at the center, this experience bleeds out. So at that point, the definition between what's inside the venue and what's outside becomes blurred. The event expands way out beyond the core activity, beyond the football match or the rugby match or the concert. And at this point, the stadium and the public realm that surrounds it also become destinations, and they become event spaces all of their own. We should be taking that fan experience throughout the whole day, from the moment they leave their home to the moment they get back again. And it becomes super interesting when we think of all of those environments that you experience along the way, in the city, in the precinct, in the spaces that sit around the main arena, and think to ourselves, okay, yeah, this is all part and parcel. This is just as important as oftentimes as the moment when you're sat in your seat watching the game. And so there becomes this new kind of territory for us, sitting around the fringe of the building and in its perimeter, where the experience can extend out and create these new types of environments. And these environments can be at different scales. They can be more or less engaged with the game, or more or less inside or outside the stadium. And so there's really this huge dialogue in our projects that we try and strive for, where the experience can bleed out, but also the city can come in. I think then when you have that dialogue, and this image of the rugby stadium we've designed in New Zealand is really interesting for this, how when you have a design approach where you're really taking care to research and understand the context you're working in, understanding the significance of the cultures you're designing for, and then thinking about the physical setting of the project, then moves like this one, where the end of the stadium is open and the building is aligned to this very significant landmark of this island that sits just off the shore. That these big things become very obvious when you're designing. And what's been fantastic about this project is how in social media and people's responses in New Zealand is how these types of moves seem to really resonate and create meaning for the people that we're hoping to build this stadium for in the future. Still on the same subject of the event bleeding out, here's a different project. So this is an indoor arena in Saudi Arabia at Diriyah that we've designed and is currently under construction. And I think this is a fascinating project because it really does make visible this idea that this fringe, this boundary between venue and city becomes extremely blurred. And it in fact becomes a setting in itself, in its own right, for different events and activities. And I think the interaction of landscape and architecture here was the method through which the design team were able to create all of these different environments that are supplementary to the main event, but also on other times can become the event destination in their own right. The building, also becomes a setting. The public realm is shaped by the building and also the other buildings that surround it in the city or the landscape. And we imagine this in this case that the building actually becomes the backdrop to that outdoor event space, and then also the boundary between the external event space and the internal event space is also blurred. So as you move into the building, the external architecture follows you, and you're constantly reminded of the unique, through the materiality and the pattern making that we have on this project, you're reminded again that this is a building uniquely of its specific site. It wouldn't make sense in any other location or for any other purpose. So if that part of thinking about how does the experience kind of bleed out and shape the spaces and the functions around it, and it nurtures this kind of very rich experience of different event environments and moments along your journey in your day as you've come out to the event. I think the next question is for us is how do these experiences shape the communities? So, and really what I mean by that is asking, okay, when there's not an event on, what is the role of the venue, and how does it function in terms of providing spaces and a framework in which genuine and meaningful communities can begin to grow over time? And so sticking with this project, when you apply that alternative lens to think, well, actually, this building may not have an event on it for many days in the year, but it's still a very significant draw. It's a landmark and an icon, and people are going to want to come here. So the question is, well, what do we think they might want to do when they get here? And so, again, the building becomes a backdrop, but it also faces outwards. The amenities that on an event day serve guests within the building have the ability to turn out and face out into the public space and to provide amenity and functionality to that space. Landscape as well is absolutely intrinsic in that kind of relationship and that process of creating opportunities for people to come, to gather, and for community to kind of engage, to feel a sense of belonging, to meet with their friends, to have a great day out, but also to begin to build memories and form communities and attach meaning to the place over time. And I love this image. I think the last thing you might expect that building to be based on this image is this super vibrant arena full of all of these great concerts that are going to be hosted here. And so the sensitivity to landscape, to material palette, to climate, building spaces that are kind of culturally recognizable and also usable is really important. And we only got to this point to be able to do this through again a really intensive process of research and collaboration with the client to understand how they wanted the building to work and how they saw it engaging the communities and providing significant additional value compared to what a traditional building might have done in the past. Okay, and I've raced through this, but this is my last of the 5 questions, and you can see here again, we've zoomed right out. So the event has, the energy of the event has bled out of the building. The community has come and engaged with the building, and so the final question is, how do these communities actually shape cities? It's known and it's becoming increasingly well recognized that these buildings are becoming catalysts for city building. When you contemplate the sheer volume of effort and energy, of money and investment, of materials, of carbon, and all of the things that we invest in to creating these venues, we need to ask ourselves, okay, what other value can be extracted from this? And so this shot here is at SoFi again, back where we started. And it's a fun shot because the stadium is behind us and now we're looking out. And so the question I'm asking here is, okay, how does an incredible project like this create value, and how does it become a catalyst for a wider city building project? Now, in the case of SoFi, this is in a part of LA where there are large expanses of land unused and underinvested in, and the creation of the stadium on this site was seen as the kind of first move in a generational kind of series or sequence of events that would lead towards the investment in and the growth of a whole new district within the city. And so that's the transformative power of these buildings and the legacy that they can have on the city and everybody who lives in and around it. So when this building was first opened, it was really just surface car park and then this beautiful lake, which I think is a very generous kind of gesture out into the city and an encouragement for people to come towards the stadium. And this is how what's now called Hollywood Park looks more recently. And you can see how the city, because of the draw of the stadium, how the city has started to grow up around it. And in amongst all of these very shiny white buildings, you can see all kinds of different uses. So there's offices, there's apartments, hotels, there's retail, cinemas, there's homes, spaces for employment, and then there's very beautiful public realm as well, which becomes the site for farmers markets and community type events. And then you can see how the city is effectively filled in between the historic site perimeter, which are these 2 roads in the foreground of the image. And the city has really grown in and around and right up to SoFi Stadium there. So I could maybe expand what I'm talking about here a little bit through one of the projects that are contained on this particular site, which is one that we designed for a company called Cosm. And I think this is fun because if we think where we started the conversation to ask about, what do people want and why are people coming to events and why do we gather and what might the future of that look like? Well, I think Cosm is a really fascinating example of what the future may hold in terms of stadium and venue design. So Cosm venues contain a sphere of high definition LED screens. And the primary use case for these is the broadcast of live sports events. But they also show science and nature, movies, and all kinds of other types of really engaging entertainment. And we were fortunate enough to actually be founding partners alongside Cosm in the development of these concepts, and we, along with Cosm, have built the first two, one in LA and one in Dallas. So this is the environment we designed, and maybe again think about what the people we can see in this image are doing. Think about why they're there, and what it is that may have motivated them to come out on the day. And again, these are the things that are universal. The way that they maybe manifest physically, or the specifics around the behaviors or the rituals, the way they behave, the type of food they want to eat, whether they're singing or whether they're just having a meeting with their colleagues. These things are universal almost to every sports and entertainment venue that we ever look at. What's fascinating about Cosm is that this is flipped. So the one thing which is consistent in Cosm are the people who are coming here to have a great day out with their friends and family and to do business. And the thing which is interchangeable is the content on the screen. So in this case, you can see this is I think a college football game. But the following day, in fact, the following hour, this could be switched and it could be showing an English Premier League game, or that evening it could be showing Cirque du Soleil. And so the venue flexes, the people come and go, but some of the core ingredients of the human experience and the motivating factors behind why people want these venues remain the same. And so I'm going to wrap up just by showing a couple more projects back to this city building concept. So this is an NFL stadium in Cleveland that's currently under construction for the Cleveland Browns. And the point I wanted to make here is that, again, this site is really an out-of-town site. And whereas I think historically, particularly in the US, the stadium in a context like this may have found itself isolated among a sea of car parking. Well, that's no longer the case, and that's no longer the aspiration, because we know that the stadium will have this fantastic effect of being a catalyst for the growth of the city. And so here you can see the aerial view, including the master plan for all of these ingredients that I've described before. So public realm at different scales, different types of environment that support people's experiences, that can nurture the growth of communities, that can actually host events in their own right, and then the opportunity for further investment and development to grow, and the city to actually come up, and to have a whole part of the city come up around this huge investment that is being made in the stadium. And the final project, making a similar point, but in a completely different context. So the Washington Commanders Stadium, which we're currently designing for the client and has been announced recently, exists in a very, very different context on the main or a main city axis in the city of Washington, D.C., where we don't have a blank canvas. We're actually on a site, we're replacing an existing stadium that has a very strong architectural identity. And that architectural identity is very cherished and very important to the people of the city, the fans, and also the owner. And so this stadium not only has to respond to this extraordinarily powerful kind of axial setting, but also somehow work within a celebration of the memory of the stadium, which used to sit on the site before we came along. We'll grow up against this building over time, but then the architecture has to do something very different. And the thing that it's doing here is responding to and connecting with the very, very powerful historic and cultural significance of the site. And with that one, I think I'm just about at time. So thank you very much for listening. I look forward to your questions.
Thank you so much, Alex, for the great presentation. I mean, it's fascinating, the scale of the projects that you guys work on. And we'll now jump into the Q&A session. So just a reminder to everyone that you can send the questions here in the Q&A tab. So I already have a first question, and it is, you've worked across such different cultural contexts like Copenhagen, Perth, Riyadh, Los Angeles, just as you showed us now. How do you ensure a venue actually feels like it belongs to its city and its community rather than being a generic international export?
Yeah, apologies. Would you mind repeating the question? It was slightly broken up.
Yes. Can you hear me now? I think we had a slightly problem with the connection. Can you hear me well?
Yeah, there's a poor connection. Sorry, it's just going to take a moment. I can hear you better now, yeah.
Okay. I'll repeat the question then. So
yes, that's
you work across such different cultural contexts, such as Copenhagen, Perth, Riyadh, Los Angeles, just as you showed us now. How do you ensure a venue actually feels like it belongs to its city and its community rather than being a generic international export?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the processes I mentioned about research are fundamental, and research needs to go in every single direction that you can think about, whether it's to do with people, whether it's to do with business, climate, city or landscape, depending on the setting. So absolutely all of these things have, in our opinion, they have to be intrinsic if the sports stadium is going to achieve what it needs to achieve. And something I didn't mention is that sports is competitive, and part of the investment of building a new sports venue is to enable teams to compete on a global scale. And so part of that is the architecture should represent the brand. It should be iconic. It should somehow express the identity of the team, and it should be recognizable, and it should be powerful, because at the end of the day, it is a competitive environment that we're in.
Yes, of course. I have a next question here, which I think is very interesting. The fan experience has changed so dramatically in the last decade, with technology, broadcasting, and social media all reshaping why and how people show up in person. How does that shift the design brief for a venue?
I think, during that period, what has become really interesting to us as stadium architects is that we've shifted, as well as the owners have shifted their understanding, that in fact the stadium is competing with some of these. Oftentimes, it's competing with some of these alternative ways that technology offers to experience events. I think COSM's a great example of that, of how some of those technologies are combined, and that's a whole new kind of physical expression of how those experiences need to manifest. And I think the effect that it also has on the fan is that it has raised expectations. People have two screens, people have the stats, they have access to more information. And so the last thing we or any of the owners want is for a fan to come to the stadium and find that actually somehow the in-person experience is missing or lacking some of those elements, or even considered to be inferior to it. So that's a really fun and exciting area for us, because technology changes constantly, and so it's incumbent upon us as designers to keep up with it and to innovate alongside it, and to seamlessly integrate it into the experience through the architecture.
Yeah, I can imagine you have to be always in touch with everything that is going on through technology to make sure the stadiums also have that. So I also have another question here. For someone who wants to work in sports and entertainment architecture, what does it actually take? Is it a specialization you train toward, or does it find you?
I think it's different for everybody. It kind of found me. I would say there's lots of people in sports architecture who are huge sports fans, and that's great. There are lots of people who are in sports architecture who maybe aren't sports fans, but they're just curious designers and curious as architects. And I think that's probably the first thing you need to have. Like, you can't go through that process of research and understanding and creativity of shifting the brief if you're not really fueled by curiosity. So I'd say that's probably the main attribute you want to have. I think, the sports industry and the clients within it are fascinating. It's an amazing environment to work in and interact with. And so if I was to give some advice to younger people coming into this, like, really engage and start to get under the skin. This is more than just about having a great time at a sports event. It's the industry is so layered, and these buildings need to do so many different things that I think architects are uniquely placed as kind of creative, strategic thinkers to synergize all of that. So get under the skin of the fans, of the clients, of the cities, and be very curious and creative.
That's a great answer. Looking at your career trajectory from expanding HKS internationally to shaping the practice's direction, what has working globally taught you about what great sports architecture actually is when you strip away the local context?
I think so. First of all, just to explain how we work, is that we essentially have a number of global hubs within our sports design team. And we're all part of the same studio, essentially. It just so happens that we're in different locations globally. So we all work on each other's projects. We all critique each other's work. We borrow ideas and inspiration from each other. And so when that's happening across very wide geographies, and when we find ourselves facing so many different contexts, we start to see patterns, and we start to learn, and we start to develop our understanding of some of the things which are constants. And then that also helps us identify the things which are maybe specific and unique to each project's context, I suppose.
Yes. I have another question here. How important are partnerships with other design firms on large-scale developments? Are there certain sectors, such as hospitality or residential, where HKS frequently collaborates with specialists?
Absolutely. I mean, these buildings take hundreds of people, and increasingly the demands are very specialized. So absolutely, we really lean very heavily on specialist collaborators in all kinds of different disciplines, and it's fascinating to learn from them and to find ways to integrate them into the process. Something about HKS is that we're not just sports architects, but we are organized into specialist sectors, meaning that my colleagues in my studio, we work on nothing but these types of projects, but I can also draw on others who maybe are experts at healthcare, who can advise us on training, or experts on hospitality interiors who can help us in these other areas. So we collaborate internally across disciplines, but also externally.
Great. Out of curiosity, how many sectors do you guys have at HKS?
So we have 3 sectors, which are kind of umbrella sectors, and then place, venues, and community. And then within that, we have specialisms in just about every type of project.
Okay. That must be very interesting working there and having very different perspectives to also do this interchange inside the team, right?
Yeah, I think one of the things that we maybe what we talk about a lot is seeking opportunities for that cross-pollination between the sectors. So what skills and expertise have we developed in our specialism that maybe others would benefit from, and vice versa?
Yes. Well, thank you, Alex. I think we have to wrap up now. But it was such a great conversation. Thank you for joining us and for accepting our invitation, for being here with us.
It's been a real pleasure. I hope you've all enjoyed it. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And also thank you, Rodrigo, for everything you shared with us in the first half of today's session. I also want to thank everyone who joined us today and sent you the questions. Your engagement really makes these conversations way richer. We hope to see you again next month for another session. And in the meantime, keep following Architecture Hunter for more content and don't hesitate to reach out. So thank you all, and I'll see you next time.